Most candidates think the interview ends when the hiring manager says, "That's all the questions I have for you." But after 20 years in people and talent management leadership, I can tell you the moment that truly decides how you're remembered is the next one. When they ask, "Do you have any questions for us?" That single exchange tells us everything about your curiosity, confidence, and judgment. It's not a throwaway courtesy, it's a subtle assessment of whether you think like a contributor or a passenger. When I sat on interview panels, the candidates who stood out weren't just those who gave great answers, they were the ones who asked great questions. They treated the end of the interview as their opportunity to show business acumen, not simply enthusiasm. Here's the truth. The questions you ask tell the hiring manager how you think. They reveal what you value, how you process information, and how you'll behave once you're in the role. Strong questions demonstrate preparation and strategy. Weak questions suggest disinterest, or worse, lack of insight. So let's start with what not to ask. Avoid the lazy, generic questions that every hiring manager hears. What's the company culture like? What does success look like? What's a typical day? These questions sound polite, but they're vague and tell me you haven't done your homework. Culture, success, and daily workflow are all visible on the company's website, LinkedIn, or Glassdoor. When a candidate asks that, it feels like filler. Instead, use the final minutes of your interview to prove you've already studied the business and you're thinking about impact. For example, if you're interviewing for a marketing role, ask, "I noticed your last product launch focused heavily on customer retention. How was your team measuring post-launch engagement? Where do you see opportunities to improve retention?" That question shows insight, preparation, and forward thinking. Here's another. What are the first three priorities you expect someone in this role to accomplish within the first 90 days? It's simple. It demonstrates initiative. You're signaling, "I plan to deliver results quickly." Or try this one. From your perspective, what separates good performers from top performers here? That question shows self-awareness and ambition without arrogance. It tells me you care about excellence and alignment, not just titles. The best questions are always rooted in business context. They connect your curiosity to the company's mission, challenges, or strategy. Now, let's talk about tone. This part matters more than most realize. Even a good question can fall flat if asked with the wrong energy. Approach this moment as a peer-to-peer conversation, not a student-to-teacher exchange. Be curious, but also confident. You're evaluating them just as much as they're evaluating you. When you ask your question, look the interviewer in the eye. Pause and truly listen to their answer. Then follow up naturally. That quick two-way exchange builds connection, and that connection often becomes the reason they remember you. Now, you might wonder, how many questions should I ask? The sweet spot is 3. Prepare 5 in advance, but use the best 3. Depending on what's already been discussed, prioritize questions about the team's priorities, success metrics, and how they define impact. Here's an insider truth from the hiring side. After every interview, we debrief as a panel. We compare notes, rate answers, and discuss red flags. And almost every time, someone brings up how the candidate handled that final question. If a candidate had no questions, it's interpreted as lack of curiosity. If their question were too surface level, we assume they didn't research. But if they ask sharp, relevant questions, especially ones tied to business outcomes, they immediately earn higher engagement scores in a debrief. That's how powerful this moment is. Here's what I recommend before every interview. 1. Review the company's recent news release and annual report. 2. Scan LinkedIn for updates about the department or leader. 3. Note one initiative or challenge you could reference. And 4, draft 5 questions tied directly to that insight. When the time comes, pick the top 3. Use them to close the interview with energy, professionalism, and genuine curiosity. Let me leave you with one more example that always impressed me. Looking 6 months ahead, what would you say the person you hired for this role was an excellent decision? That question does 3 things. It shows you think in outcomes, you care about value, and you already see yourself as part of the solution. Remember, you're not auditioning for the part of a perfect candidate. You're demonstrating how you think as a future colleague. The interview doesn't end with your answers, it ends with the quality of your curiosity.